11 years, 239 lives. An unprecedented mystery in aviation history. Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370 vanished without explanation on that fateful night in 2014, leaving thousands of unanswered questions. But now, with the emergence of the most advanced deep-sea search technology ever developed, the ultimate truth is gradually coming to light. The Ocean Infinity Fleet has pinpointed a 15,000 square kilometer search zone in the Indian Ocean where they believe the Boeing 777 rests at depths nearing 6,000 meters. New clues include the flaperon debris found on Reunion Island and data from a unique radio signal tracking technology. Yet why did it take over a decade to uncover these clues? Who deliberately disabled the aircraft's transponder system? And will this new evidence truly lead us to the wreckage or prove to be another dead end? The answers likely lie waiting in the ocean's abyssal depths. This time, technology may accomplish what was once impossible, unraveling the greatest mystery of the 21st century. It was supposed to be a routine flight. Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370 took off from Kuala Lumpur at 12:41 a.m. on March 8, 2014, heading toward Beijing with 239 people on board. The plane climbed smoothly into the night sky, sent its last automated signal at 1:07 a.m., and stayed on course. Then came the final words from the cockpit.
Good night, Malaysia 370.
2 minutes later, the aircraft's transponder went silent. Suddenly, MH370 was no longer visible to civilian air traffic control. At first, air traffic controllers thought it was just a technical glitch. However, military radar then picked up something unusual. The aircraft had turned west, completely off its flight path, and began flying over the Malay Peninsula. It kept going, crossing the Andaman Sea. There was no radio call, no alert, and no explanation. The plane just kept flying, silently, for over 6 more hours. The last signal ever detected came at 8:19 a.m. By then, MH370 was somewhere over the southern Indian Ocean. And after that, it was gone. There was no distress call, no debris, and no sign of wreckage. In the space of a few hours, a modern Boeing 777 had vanished from the face of the Earth. People around the world ask the same question. How can a plane disappear in 2014? 11 years later, we still don't have a full answer. But what if the real breakthrough didn't come from the sky, but from the ocean floor? What if the solution to aviation's biggest mystery was never about radar, but about robots? Let's look at how technology is finally turning the tide. From the moment MH370 vanished, the search became a global mission. Governments, experts, and volunteers raced to find answers, but the Indian Ocean was massive, and clues were almost non-existent. At first, rescue teams searched the South China Sea because that was the last known location. But hours later, satellite data revealed that the plane had turned west. This changed everything. The focus shifted thousands of miles toward the southern Indian Ocean, one of the most remote places on Earth. Over the next 3 years, ships and aircraft from 26 countries joined the effort. The search covered more than 4.5 million square kilometers, which is roughly the size of the United States. Specialized vessels dragged sonar equipment across the ocean floor. Planes dropped underwater listening devices into the waves. Even citizens joined through satellite crowd mapping platforms like Tomnod, scanning blurry images for possible debris. By the end of 2017, the cost had climbed past $150 million. It became the most expensive search in aviation history. But despite all the advanced tools and massive resources, the result was disappointing. No black boxes, no bodies. Only a few broken parts later found washed up on distant beaches. The ocean had swallowed the evidence, and the world was left with only more questions. Why did the most high-tech search of its time fail so badly? What made MH370 so difficult to find? And more importantly, what changed in the years after that? The answer might surprise you, because the breakthrough didn't come from human hands, but from machines built to go where no diver ever could. For over a year, there was silence. No wreckage, no signals, and no real leads. Then, in July 2015, something changed. A piece of debris, later confirmed as a flaperon from a Boeing 777, was found on the shores of Reunion Island in the Indian Ocean. It was the first physical evidence that MH370 had crashed somewhere over the Southern Ocean. That single piece gave families and investigators hope, but it also raised more questions. If this part had drifted all the way to Reunion, what else could be floating out there? Soon after, more debris began appearing on coastlines thousands of kilometers apart. Parts of the plane showed up in Madagascar, Mozambique, and Tanzania. Each new find helped scientists build models of ocean currents to estimate where the plane might have entered the sea. Experts traced the debris path backward using computer simulations and concluded that the crash site was likely along a narrow arc in the southern Indian Ocean. But even with that information, search teams couldn't lock down the exact location. The ocean was just too vast, and the plane could have hit the water at a sharp angle, sinking quickly and scattering wreckage across steep underwater terrain. The debris gave proof of tragedy but no closure. It confirmed that the plane had ended its journey in the water, yet its main body and black boxes remained hidden. So the world was left with broken parts, but not the full story. What kind of technology could scan those dark, dangerous depths and actually find something? That's when the next phase began, and it came with machines unlike anything used before. After years of silence, the search for MH370 came back to life. In 2018, a private company called Ocean Infinity stepped in. Unlike previous missions led by governments, this was a high-risk operation run by a tech startup based in Texas. They had something others didn't. Ocean Infinity had developed a new kind of search system that combined deep-sea robotics, high-resolution sonar, and autonomous navigation. But they also made a bold promise: no discovery, no payment. Under their no find, no fee agreement, they would only receive up to $70 million if they found the wreckage. That meant everything was on the line. To lead the mission, Ocean Infinity sent out one of the most advanced vessels in the world, the Seabed Constructor. This ship was more than just a research platform. It carried a fleet of underwater robots known as AUVs, or autonomous underwater vehicles. Each AUV could dive to depths of 6,000 meters and scan the ocean floor without being attached to the ship. They worked in teams, mapping huge areas using powerful sonar systems and onboard computers. Unlike earlier search tools that moved slowly and had to be dragged behind ships, these robots were fast, smart, and independent. They operated silently, flying close to the seabed while collecting thousands of gigabytes of data with every dive. In their first attempt in 2018, Ocean Infinity's AUVs scanned more than 112,000 square kilometers of ocean. That was almost the entire area covered by the earlier government search. They even explored regions that had never been touched before. But even with this advanced technology, the mission came up empty. There was still no sign of MH370. Ocean Infinity paused the search, but they didn't give up. They returned to work, refining their technology, developing a new robotic fleet, and designing a second-generation ship, the Armada 7806. This new vessel could launch and control multiple AUVs without human crews on board. It was like something out of science fiction, a floating robot brain commanding a team of underwater scouts. And in early 2024, Ocean Infinity announced they were ready to return. This time, their equipment was smarter, their data more precise, and their strategy sharper than ever. They focused on a smaller region identified by AI models and ocean current simulations. Every sensor, every sonar ping, every robot dive was aimed at one goal: to finally break the silence of the deep. To search where humans cannot go, you need machines that can think, move, and survive without help. That is exactly what Ocean Infinity's underwater fleet was built to do. These were not the old-style remote-operated vehicles that needed to be guided by cables. They were AUVs, autonomous underwater vehicles, and they worked like a team of deep-sea detectives. Each AUV was shaped like a torpedo, around 6 meters long, and packed with high-end technology. They could dive 6,000 meters below the surface, deeper than most submarines, and stay active for over 100 hours without surfacing. Once launched from the Armada 7806, they separated and moved silently across the seafloor, each scanning its own section like a search grid. Their mission was simple: scan every square meter of seabed and find anything that looked out of place. To do that, they used 4 main types of sonar sensors. The first was side-scan sonar, which sends out wide beams and creates black and white images of the seafloor. It works like a photocopier, detecting objects that break the smooth pattern of sand and rock. The second was synthetic aperture sonar, which combines multiple pulses to produce sharp, detailed images. This system can identify small items, even if they are buried under mud or resting between underwater cliffs. The third was multi-beam sonar, which sends hundreds of beams downward and builds a 3D map of the terrain. This helped the robots navigate rough areas and spot larger shapes like fuselages or wings. The final system was the sub-bottom profiler, which shoots sound pulses deep into the ocean floor. It can find wreckage hidden beneath layers of sediment, where the plane's main body might still be resting. Each AUV carried its own computer, batteries, GPS, sensors, and data storage. They operated without needing any real-time control. After finishing their scans, they surfaced and sent back terabytes of data to the mothership. Onboard experts and software then analyzed this raw sonar information, looking for clues. The key was pattern recognition. Humans would miss strange shapes in the noise, but artificial intelligence could spot them in seconds. With every new mission, the AUVs became smarter. They learned which textures were natural and which ones could be signs of man-made objects. They adapted their paths to focus on areas with more promising results. In 2024, these steel hunters covered more ground than ever before. They mapped regions never touched by any previous search. They scanned ridges, valleys, and trenches across a zone more than 80,000 square kilometers wide. And each time they returned, the images got clearer. It was no longer just about luck or guessing. It was science. It was strategy. It was technology working without sleep, pushing deeper and sharper into the mystery than humans ever could. But even with this high-tech force, one question still haunted the mission. Could artificial intelligence really be trusted to find a needle in a haystack, when no one even knew where the haystack was? That brings us to the secret weapon no one saw coming, the one that didn't come from the sea, but from the airwaves. While machines searched below the ocean's surface, a different kind of technology was working far above. It didn't use propellers or sonar, it used data. In 2022, a group of independent researchers led by aerospace engineer Richard Godfrey introduced something that changed the entire game. They used a system called WSPR, short for Weak Signal Propagation Reporter. Originally, WSPR wasn't designed to track airplanes. It was a global radio network used by amateur radio operators to study how signals bounce through the atmosphere. Every second, thousands of radio signals travel between stations around the world. If anything large passes through those signals, it disturbs the pattern. That includes planes. What Godfrey and his team discovered was that MH370 had likely crossed through multiple WSPR paths during its final flight. These tiny disruptions had been recorded, but no one had ever tried to read them before. The team developed a special algorithm that filtered noise, traced signal shifts, and used satellite data to cross-check the path. Using this method, they built a new flight path that matched everything known: satellite handshakes, radar arcs, and debris drift. But it went even further. It predicted the final resting place of MH370 to be near the Seahorse Zone, a remote part of the southern Indian Ocean, just outside the original search area. The location was extremely deep, surrounded by underwater cliffs and strong currents. It explained why the earlier searches missed it. More importantly, this new target zone was small enough for Ocean Infinity's robotic fleet to scan in detail. 2024, Ocean Infinity received the latest model from the WSPR research team. Their updated data included not only signal disruptions but also detailed current simulations based on floating debris found across the Indian Ocean. Every variable, wind, wave height, and satellite timestamps, was processed through machine learning. The final result was chilling. If the model was correct, then MH370 could be lying within a 40 nautical mile radius near the edge of a deep underwater ravine. That zone had never been touched before. It was deeper than most areas scanned in the 2018 mission. And now, with better technology and a focused map, Ocean Infinity prepared its next dive. One AUV after another descended into the dark. This time, they were not just scanning. They were hunting based on a map built by invisible signals collected from across the planet and decoded by machines. The mystery had moved from radar screens to radio waves and from sonar maps to machine learning predictions. After 11 years, a real physical clue had finally come from the deep. And it wasn't alone. Within a 15-kilometer radius of that first object, 2 more potential structures were detected. One resembled the tail section of a wide-body aircraft. The other was a large fragment that seemed to carry the signature curve of a fuselage cross-section. Sonar mapping suggested the parts were lying in a fan shape, likely caused by a high-speed impact followed by underwater drift. The search team didn't release everything to the public immediately. They were cautious. Confirmation required visual contact, chemical testing, and comparison with MH370's unique structural blueprints. But behind closed doors, investigators and aviation analysts began preparing for what could be the most important underwater discovery of the decade. A separate team began planning a retrieval mission. This involved special submersibles, pressure-resistant recovery gear, and deep-sea engineering teams trained for extreme environments. There was also coordination with aviation authorities from Malaysia, Australia, and international agencies like ICAO. What made this discovery different was the combination of human persistence and machine learning. It wasn't luck. It was a chain reaction of radio waves, ocean currents, sonar grids, and thousands of hours of processing data. Why was the transponder turned off? Why did it change direction without sending a distress signal? Was it a technical failure, a hijacking, or something more personal? Theories range from fire in the cockpit to sabotage by the pilot, to a slow decompression event that left everyone unconscious. Some even believe in more extreme possibilities involving military operations or secret cargo. But so far, no theory has been proven. What we do know is that the final moments of MH370 are still hidden in data that hasn't yet been found. Even if the wreck is confirmed, the answers will depend on how much can be recovered and what condition it's in. But the journey is not over yet. The next challenge will be recovering the flight recorders from crushing depths where no human can go. These black boxes hold the key to understanding the final moments of MH370. Were they damaged by time and pressure? Will their data still be intact? Even if we retrieve them, some mysteries may remain. Yet every piece of wreckage tells a story, and this discovery proves how far we've come since 2014, when a state-of-the-art passenger jet vanished without explanation. This breakthrough shows what happens when human ingenuity refuses to give up. For curious minds who love unraveling real-life mysteries, MH370's story is proof that no puzzle stays unsolved forever. Whether it's historical enigmas, celebrity scandals, or shocking true events, the truth always surfaces eventually. So keep exploring, keep questioning, and remember that today's wildest conspiracy theories could become tomorrow's answered questions.